Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I wanted to give you guys the top armies of August 2020. Feels like forever since I made one of these videos, since Nurgle kinda put the world on hold for a bit. But tournaments are slowly coming back to the point where there's enough events for me to actually do some tournament coverage videos, so I'm super excited to be back to making these videos again. Unfortunately though, there aren't as many events as there were pre-Nurgle, so the meta isn't really diverse enough right now for me to make this a top 10 video like it used to be, but instead I'm just going to show you guys which armies happen to do well this month. And then I'll show the lists of probably around the top 10-ish armies and give some insights on them. So let's stop wasting time, let's just get started since I know you've all been waiting patiently for this. So in August there were 6 GTs that I know of, and out of all of the top 4 placings from those events we have 17 different factions. And those are Salamanders, Orcs, Space Marines, Chaos Demons, Nurgle, Space Wolves, Chaos Space Marines, Iron Hands, Custodes, Drukhari, Sisters of Battle, Death Guard, Blood Angels, Harlequins, Ultramarines, and Grey Knights. So the number before the faction name is how many times that faction placed top 4 at a GT during August, and the number after the faction name are the placements that those armies received at those GTs. So by showing you this, you can probably understand now why this can't really be a top 10. Sure, there's more than 10 armies here, but a lot of them would have been ties, and I think it would have just been kind of weird to make a video like that. So instead, we're just going to talk about some of these armies. For the Nurgle army list, this list spams a ton of Nurglings to protect some strong characters like Demon Princes, essentially guaranteeing that those units get up the board safely to smack some stuff in combat. Or the Nurglings can just be used as cheap objective holders and deny area to the opponent. Most likely, after accomplishing their first goal of being the screen, they end up just becoming objective holders. It also has 3 Plague Burst Crawlers making use of the 4+ invul from Poxmongers, which is a new thing from their Psychic Awakening book, and it makes those tanks stupidly durable. And with the buffs vehicles received in 9th edition, those are probably some of the best vehicles in the game right now. There's also a cool combo with the Plague Marines to have them throw a ton of Blight Grenades and do a bunch of mortal wounds. So not only are the Plague Marines pretty decent at holding an objective because of their durability, they actually have some decent damage potential as well, so I expect to see them a lot more in top lists in the future. Overall, it's a pretty solid list, and I believe its only loss was to the first place list, which happens to be the #1 army for this month, so take that as you will. For the Space Wolves, we have Wolfen spam. Wolfen are definitely one of the better units in the army, especially in the meta today with how many melee units are around. Wolfen have an ability that allows them to make some attacks when they die in melee. So they are very good defensively and offensively against other melee armies, because they can either charge in and get their damage that way, or if they get charged and die, they're still going to end up smacking back and doing some damage that way. Being toughness 5 with the storm shields makes them decently durable, and with all the new terrain rules and the amount of terrain being used at tournaments, it's actually pretty easy to get these guys up the board now. Ragnar is also a beast, probably one of the best characters in the game for his points, and pretty much just that guy alone actually tempts me in playing Space Wolves competitively. For the Chaos Space Marines list, we have a really cool take on the Heretic Astartes. Most of the builds I've seen recently is just mainly Demon Engine spam since they did get some massive buffs this edition, but this list is definitely not that. This list includes both Emperor's Children and Thousand Sons. It makes use of both Rubric Marines and Noise Marines, which are units we barely ever saw do well on top tables in 8th edition. The Rubric Marines are definitely better this edition just because of how scoring works, because you want units to be able to survive on objectives to be able to actually score points for them on the following turn, so Rubric Marines fit that spot pretty well. And for the Noise Marines, their guns aren't really the longest of ranges, but with the new smaller board that we play on, they can definitely reach a higher percentage of the board, making them actually a pretty good pickup now. The list also includes 2 units of 20 Zangors and some leftover points for summoning in some demons. I think this list's big play is teleporting 20 Zangors 9 inches away from enemies before the game, using a spell from the Cult of Duplicity, which is a new thing from the Thousand Sons Psychic Awakening update. And then they combine that with the Dark Matter Crystal on turn 1 to teleport the other 20 Zangors 9 inches away from the enemies. So if the Thousand Sons player is lucky, he can have 40 Zangors smacking the front lines of the enemy on turn 1, which not only does damage, but also holds the opponent's army in place for a turn or two, allowing the Chaos Marine player to rack up some primary points. Overall, it's a really cool and unique take that we haven't really seen before from Chaos Space Marines, so yeah, I'm happy to share it with you guys. And speaking of interesting takes, for the Iron Hands, we actually have a very interesting build from them. So this build more or less spams durable infantry and makes them more durable by giving them a 5-up invul from Pharaohs and a 5-up Feel No Pain from an upgraded Apothecary. Basically, this list is the Imperium's version of Death Guard. For the Apothecary, you upgrade them to a Chief Apothecary using rules from the Faith and Fury book, and you give him a Warlord trait that gives him an aura of a 6-up Feel No Pain. But if that aura is on an Iron Hands unit, which already has a 6-up Feel No Pain, then the Iron Hands get a 5-up Feel No Pain instead. This list actually has a decent amount of melee in it as well, which is something we don't necessarily see from Iron Hands all that often. But like I said, this list is kinda, in a way, emulating like Imperial Death Guard, so I guess it makes sense. Other than that though, we have the usual Iron Hand stuff, like a Relic Leviathan, which is still a beast in Iron Hands, especially with all the healing and shenanigans you can do with it. They have some Grav Devastators and a Drop Pod, which are one of the best units you can include in almost any Space Marine army. And of course we have the 3 units of Eradicators, because why not, right? Those units are incredibly good right now. Overall, it's a pretty solid list and a really cool take on Iron Hands. For the Chaos Demons list, we have a Fluxmaster, Lord of Change, a Poxbringer, 2 3-man units of Nurglings, 3 10-man units of Plaguebearers, 2 units of 9 Beasts of Nurgle, a unit of 5 Furies, 2 units of 3 Screamers, and 266 reinforcement points. So all the troops are pretty much just there for camping objectives or screening. The characters provide some psychic spells and support. The Lord of Change especially, since he can put out some decent mortal wounds while also being pretty resilient with his 3-up invul from the Impossible Robe relic. The Furies and the Screamers I assume are pretty much there just to help score secondaries like engage on all fronts, since they are pretty fast units. And the 18 Beasts of Nurgle is where the majority of the damage in this list comes from. The 266 reinforcement points though are essentially there to be used as a side deck, so to speak, if you play any trading card games. Meaning, it allows the Chaos player to summon in whatever they feel is necessary at the time to help them out with their matchup. So it's a nice little toolbox. This list does look pretty solid, but overall, it looks also incredibly expensive since Beasts of Nurgle are Forge World and they cost a fortune. So I assume this player probably converted cheaper models to count as the Beasts of Nurgle. And if you're going to try to emulate this list yourself with all those Beasts of Nurgle, I would recommend you do the same so you can save yourself a ton of money. Now let's move on to the Space Marines. And again, when I say Space Marines, I'm talking about the 2 armies that had multiple chapters in it and weren't just mono one chapter. So for these 2 lists, we have 2 different combinations. The first one is Ultramarines and Salamanders. And in the Ultramarine part of this list, they took Guilliman, a Chaplain, Tigerius, 2 units of Blade Guard Vets, a Judicar, Plasma Inceptors, a squad of 3 Landspeeder Tempest, and an Impulsor. And for the Salamander part of the list, they took an allied Calidus Assassin, a Captain in Phobos armor, an Infiltrator squad, and 2 units of Eradicators. To be honest, I feel like this list would have been perfectly fine as just all pure Ultramarines, since the only real benefit to bringing that Salamander's detachment, in my opinion, is just the +1 to wound stratagem for the Eradicators. But I mean, with Guilliman rerolls, those Eradicators would have been just as fine in Ultramarines in my opinion. Not trying to take anything away from this player's list, since it obviously did well, but I don't fully understand why they didn't just go pure Ultramarines and save some command points in the process. For the second list, we have White Scars and Salamanders. This list is pretty similar to the first, except this time going a bit heavier into the Salamanders. It's a successor chapter making use of long-range marksman and stealthy, which work really well with Salamanders because they help their stuff like their flamers get in range more easily. This list makes use of some Salamander shooting and White Scars melee, so pretty decent combo. Now let's move on to the Greenskins, the Orcs. We had 3 armies hit top 4 in October, which I assume surprised a lot of us. I know it surprised me a bit, especially the lists. The first list is actually a ton of vehicles. Vehicles got some incredibly good buffs this edition, so it makes sense that vehicles are starting to do better at events. Especially vehicles that are both good with shooting, but also in melee combat, which a lot of Orc vehicles are. Pretty much every unit in this army is also incredibly fast, has some decent DACA, but also has some decent SMACA. To be honest though, a lot of these units, I didn't even know what they did until I discovered this list, since I kinda blew them off after reading the rules in 8th edition, and then seeing that they wouldn't be that viable with the 8th edition rule set. But after looking up the rules in this edition, they actually pack a decent punch. With the War Boss on bike going the way of the Dodo though, this list would need minor adjustments, but overall it's a really cool take on Orcs in 9th edition. For the second and third list, we have something that's a bit more traditional but still somewhat unique. They are both the same list, but were piloted by different players at the same event, showing the list consistency. It's mainly Goths, making use of Ghazghkull, a ton of boys, a big mech with custom force field, some Mega Knobs, a Wall Banner, a Pain Boy, and some Smasher Guns. Basically, this list wants to use the stratagem to make the force field 18 inches, so it can fit most of the army inside of it, giving everything a 5-up invul. It also makes use of the Green Tide stratagem, which allows an Orc boy squad to bring back dead models and teleport across the board, essentially giving you a 4th giant squad of Orcs. It wants to take control of the board with all these bodies moving up, keeping the opponent in their deployment zone preferably, all while the Smasher Guns pick off stuff in the back that the melee force is having a hard time getting to. And for the top dog of August, we have what everyone probably expected, Salamanders. This army is kinda dumb and is a step above pretty much everything else that the game has to offer. They have some ridiculous combos and stratagems that no army can really compare to. It started when Alex Harrison showcased the army in his first place win of the first GT of 9th edition, and after that the ball got rolling and other players picked up the army, while Alex made another first place finish at another event with a more optimized version of his list. So instead of showing his old version of the list, which by the way I do have a video on it if you want to check it out and get some more in-depth insights on the army, a link for that video will be in the description, but let's go over the new optimized version of the list. So the main difference is 2 units of scouts instead of 1 unit of scouts and 1 intercessor unit. This way you can save up some points, but you also have some more bodies that can be deployed mid-board before the game begins, which will allow you to deny some area for their infiltrating units or their deep striking units, but it also usually puts you on objectives very early in the game, which allows you to start racking up those primary points, or even starting to set up secondaries like raise the banners if that's something that you take. Only 1 5-man unit of aggressors this time as well, since that's pretty much all you need if you can protect them. A ton of more Landspeeder Tempest, and no Whirlwind Scorpius this time around. I assume you went with the more Landspeeders since they are pretty cheap for what they do. They are also incredibly fast, so they work well at scoring stuff like Engage on all fronts. But they also come with some decent DACA as well. As for the rest of the list, it's pretty much the same since everything in this army can pump out a ton of damage. Eradicators are amazing in Salamanders due to the Salamander's Doctrine. The Grav Devs are amazing because of a combination of stratagems Salamanders have access to. And same with the Aggressors, who make use of the Salamander's Doctrine but also some stratagem combos to pretty much delete any unit in the game with ease. If you want some more insight on these combos and how the army works, again, I have a video where I interviewed the creator of this list, Alex Harrison, and got some insights on everything. And it's a very good in-depth analysis of the army overall, so I recommend checking it out if you're a Salamanders player. But overall, Salamanders are definitely a force to look out for, at least until Space Marines get their update next month, where I assume and hope they will be toned down slightly, and I say this even as a Space Marine player myself. And I guess that's it for this video. If I didn't show off or talk about a certain army you were interested in, you can find all these lists over at 40kstats.com under the top 4 armies section. So make sure to check out that site if you want to see the list for yourself. Also, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content like this. And if you enjoy what I do here on the channel and would like to support the channel even further outside of watching my videos and sharing them with your friends, then feel free to check me out on Patreon. Patreon is the main source of income for the channel, and it's what keeps my bills paid. I offer tons of rewards for different pledge amounts as well, stuff like personalized coaching, custom list building, and exclusive access to the Almost Pro Gaming Discord, where you can chat with myself and many other patrons to get help with your 40k game, or just to hang out and chat with like-minded people. With that said, thanks to all my past and current patrons. You guys and gals are awesome, and I can't thank you all enough. And thanks to all you regular viewers as well. I'm glad you all enjoy my content, and I guess that's it. So thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Happy wargaming.